I'm Brad Mckoy. Thanks for checking out Holy Spirit Disciple Maker. In this video, we'll be talking about how essential it is to rely on the Holy Spirit when navigating a discipling relationship and 3 scriptural keys that keep you rooted in Him. I remember the panic that settled into my heart as a young pastor whenever I first realized that discipleship was a thing. Some of it may just be terminology, but I'd never really heard about discipleship in church growing up. I understood things like Sunday school and youth group and Bible study, but as far as like what it meant beyond my mom and dad to really have someone teaching me the scriptures and teaching me how to follow Jesus, that was just a different idea and a different concept. And the more I began to understand that not everybody has a family that's going to teach them how to walk with Jesus, like the more I would see in the scriptures, like the call for Jesus when He says, hey, come follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. That's more than just a call to make converts. You know, when Jesus gives us His Great Commission, it's about discipling nations. And so what does that really look like? Well, I didn't really have a clue, to be honest with you. And so I was looking for formulas, I was looking for programs, I was looking for books. In fact, the first few guys that I began to try to disciple, I just found this little series of booklets, paperback booklets, that we would go through and different topics. And when we would, read a Bible verse and fill in the blank. And those were profitable because we were being faithful with what we had. But I began to understand that discipleship is much more than just a series of booklets. It's not something that there is a formula for, and in fact, I believe it's never a program. But discipleship really is about a relationship. And if my relationship with Jesus is dependent on the person of the Holy Spirit, then why would I try to disciple someone else into something different than that? So in this video, I want to break down 3 scriptural truths that have helped me over the last 20 years in remembering discipling is important and essential to do in cooperation with Holy Spirit. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is how the Holy Spirit is actually the ultimate disciple maker. Where do we learn this? From Jesus Himself. On the night before He died, He was talking to His disciples and He told them that when He went away, He would send the Holy Spirit to them. And that as He sent the Holy Spirit to them, one of the things He would do is that He would lead and guide them to all truth. In fact, Jesus says, He is going to point to me. And that actually is what discipleship is all about, pointing to Jesus. So again, if I need the Holy Spirit to point me to Jesus, why would I begin a discipling relationship without learning to cooperate with Holy Spirit, whose job it is to lead and guide into truth and to point to Jesus? This is just a super essential part of making disciples anyway. And so better than me trying to figure out, okay, here's the 10 things everyone needs to know, I want to make sure I'm partnering with the person of the Holy Spirit to point people to Jesus and to see their life get established in truth. When Jesus is saying this, He says, I will not leave you orphans, but I'm going to send you a helper. And that word helper in most translations is capitalized because it's a capital H helper. And so in my life, in every area, I recognize I have a need for Holy Spirit. And that really applies in this area of disciple making and areas of discipling relationships. Listen, in following Jesus, if I'm really honest with you, I would let you know that some of the most challenging things that have come up in my life have come up in the context of these discipling relationships. And so to build a dependence upon Holy Spirit as I'm entering into these relationships is actually a really healthy thing for me because Jesus told me I needed His help. And I say, yes, God, I need your help. Holy Spirit, teach me how to disciple the person I'm walking with. So learning how to depend on the person of the Holy Spirit in discipling relationships leads us to our second essential key. And that is the Holy Spirit's that real person that I can have a real relationship with. Something told me that the Holy Spirit was real, but like He was just like this big cosmic force and that, I knew He convicted me of sin. But honestly, as I was growing up, I didn't understand the dynamics of a relationship with Holy Spirit. And so without that understanding, it's easy to try to develop a list of 10 essential things everyone needs to know and let that be my guide. But whenever I read the scriptures, I find statements like this: don't grieve the Holy Spirit, walk with the Spirit. And I recognize that I'm intended to have a relationship that is dynamic with Holy Spirit. It's not just something that's a static thing. It's not just something that's, well, hey, because I'm a believer, the Holy Spirit's inside of me and He seals me until I die. There's actually a relationship I need to cultivate and develop. And so where that comes in the place of disciple making is when Paul is saying to the church in Galatians to walk in the Spirit and you'll not fulfill the lust of the flesh, it's really important to understand that that walk is not just like this generic idea, like a nickname, like, oh, the Christian walk. Later in that passage, he says, keep step for step with the Holy Spirit. And what I've learned is, while yes, there are things that are essential that I try to make sure I'm going over with everyone I'm discipling, I really have to learn to keep step for step and trust that the Holy Spirit's going to lead and guide me and how to point someone to Jesus. This is especially true when you're navigating through difficult situations and difficult parts of a relationship. It's really important that I'm not just going by what I think is best, but I'm really, again, thinking about it like developing an active partnership and cooperating with Holy Spirit as I point people to the scriptures and as I point people to the life of Jesus. So the last thing I want to bring up is how the Holy Spirit is actually the source of the thing that we need most for making disciples, and that is love. Love is essential for making disciples. And we find that if we're going to follow Jesus in this, that one of the most important aspects that I've learned from his life is on the night before he died, it says that having loved them, he loved them till the end. Oftentimes, disciple making, because it is messy, it can be a place where we can get burnt out, we can get tired. And if we don't have the source of real love fueling us, we're just not going to finish well. You know, I recognize that Holy Spirit is involved here because we learn later that love is a fruit of the Spirit. This is not just a nickname for a group of good attributes. This actually tells us that the Holy Spirit is the root, and love is one of the fruits that comes out of that relationship. I know that if the best I have to offer someone is Brad's kindness or Brad's compassion, that at some point in time that's going to run out. But if what I'm giving them is coming from an overflow of my relationship with God through the Holy Spirit, then that's something that's not going to disappoint. David said this, he anoints my head with oil, a representation of the Holy Spirit, and my cup runs over. So I really encourage you that love is something that you don't have to wonder about your capacity for. Stay rooted in a relationship with Holy Spirit and let what he is pouring into you overflow out of your life. You know, it's important as we talk about this to acknowledge that discipleship is not a spiritual gift. And it's not something that only certain Christians are called to. It should be an overflow of our relationship with Jesus that is empowered by Holy Spirit. If you're still watching this video, it's because you really want to learn and you're wanting to grow in this area. And so I just want to ask you to do two things. First of all, invite Holy Spirit to be the one that's discipling you. Invite him to point you to Jesus and to establish your life in truth. And the second thing is just acknowledge, Holy Spirit, I need your help. I need your help in learning how to cooperate with you in discipling others. If you do that, I know this, he's not going to disappoint you. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If it's been helpful for you, I want to recommend some of the other Discipleship 101 resources that we've put together. And if you like this video, let us know that by liking it on YouTube and by subscribing to our channel. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to check this out, and I'll see you next time.